Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. ISKCON founder Acharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Paritaja, after quitting the body, Prabhase in the place of pilgrimage at Prabhas. Deham Atmanha, his body. Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Avesena, being absorbed in that thought. That is Chittaha, thoughts and actions. Pitrubi, along with the residents of Pitraloka. Swashayam, his own abode. Yaya, departed. Translation. Vidura, while on pilgrimage, left his body at Prabhasa because he was absorbed in thought of Lord Krishna. He was received by the denizens of Pitraloka planet, where he returned to his original post. Purport. The difference between the Pandavas and Vidura is that the Pandavas are eternal associates of the Lord, the personality of God, whereas Vidura is one of the administrative demigods in charge of the Pitraloka planet, and is known as Yamaraj. Men are afraid of Yamaraj because it is he only who awards punishment to the miscreants of the material world, but those who are devotees of the Lord have nothing to fear from him. To be the devotees, he is a cordial friend, but to the non-devotees, he is fear personified. As we have already discussed, it is understood that Yamaraj was cursed by Mandup Muni to be degraded as a Sudra, and therefore Vidura was an incarnation of Yamaraj. As an eternal servitor of the Lord, he displayed his devotional activities very ardently and lived a life of a pious man, so much so that a materialistic man like Dhritarashtra also got salvation by his instruction. So by his pious activities in the devotional service of the Lord, he was able to always remember the lotus feet of the Lord, and thus he became washed of all contamination of Sudra-born life. At the end, he was again received by the denizens of Pitraloka and posted in his original position. The demigods are also associates of the Lord without personal touch, whereas direct associates of the Lord are in constant personal touch with him. The Lord and his personal associates incarnate in many universes without cessation. The Lord remembers them all, whereas the associates forget due to their being very minute parts and parcels of the Lord. They are apt to forget such incidents due to being infinitesimal. This is corroborated in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 5. So Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 5 states, Sri Bhagavan Ovacha, Bahuni me vyatitani, janmani tawa chajuni. Tanyaham veda sarvani, natram veta parantapa. The Lord said, many births, both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. Om Kyanatamarandasya, Kyanatanaslakaya, Saksuram Jena Tasmai, Sri Gorabhide, Sujetaya Mano Vistam, Stapitam, Jena Bhutam, Swayam Rupam, Kadamaya, Dadati Swar, Padam. Pandasi Krishna Chaitanya, Nityananda, Saho, Buddhataya Pustavantu Chittata, Tamo, Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Hare Hare. Vanchakalpataribhyacha kripasam yarivacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhuta Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pratari Nirvisesa Sanyavadi Sata Visitari. So, this text is very nicely explained how Vidura is an incarnation of Yamaraj. The Yamaraj was cursed by Manduk Muni or Manduka Muni. Some places they call him a different name. But here it's mentioned, this Prabhupada mentions Manduk Muni. So it's interesting perhaps to go a little bit retrospective, some background about his story. Manduk Muni was performing austerities, and one day some law enforcement agents were chasing after some dacoits, and they happened to apprehend the dacoits within the property of Manduk Muni. And so they rounded up also Manduk Muni because they thought he was one of the criminals. And so they got all of them taken away, and they were condemned to death after prosecution, after indictment, prosecution. They were found guilty by some arbitrary judge, and they were sentenced to death by piercing with a lance. Prabhupada explains in a lecture he gave in Geneva. He was explaining in that lecture how that type of execution was very unwholesome. Of course, no execution is wholesome, but this was very unwholesome because they used the lance to pierce the victim or the criminal through his rectum up to his head, to come out through the head. And that's how the criminal dies. So it's a very terrific way to punish criminals, condemn people to death. And this was going on. And so when Manduk Muni and the criminals, his cohorts, but he wasn't a criminal, or he was his perceived cohorts, because that was the perception of the law enforcement agents that he was one of the criminals, whereas he was a very austere sage. So when the king heard of this situation, he quickly intervened and got Manduk Muni released. So Manduk Muni was a little bit uncomfortable with the situation, and nobody will be comfortable with that type of situation, especially when you're a very powerful money like Manduk money. So, Papa mentions in the purport to one of his texts how, in saying that lecture he gave in Geneva, and he mentioned about how Manduk Muni was upset. So after even when he was released, and so he went to Yamaraj. You know, he used to say he has mystic cities. So he went to Yamaraj to make a submission, to make inquiries about why he was ill-treated like that. So Yamaraj, in his defense, he opened up a can of worms. He told Manduk Muni that when Manduk Muni was a kid, he had used what do you call? He has used some instrument, some natural instrument, whether some bamboo stick or some thorn or whatever, to pierce an insect. And so because of that, Manduk Muni has to pass through this type of challenge. So with this, Manduk Muni wondered why, or wondered how so-called crime or sin he committed when he was a child that he should be accountable. So because of that, he was enraged, and he cursed Yamaraj to take birth as a Sudra. So that was what brought about Yamaraj's birth in the material world as Vidura, Santo Sudrani. So that's the background of that story. And basically, when Yamaraj was born, he was born to this family of the Kauravas. And so he was Dhritarashtra's brother. But as a child of a Sudra, he had no inheritance to the throne. But he was very astute in terms of values, religious, spiritual values. And so he took up a responsibility to be able to salvage his brother, Dhritarashtra, by providing him with a sense of wisdom. And here in this very text, it's mentioned how he had traveled on pilgrimage. He was on a pilgrimage. He's been traveling to different places. I mean, it's like also Balaram was on pilgrimage when the war was to commence. He went on pilgrimage. He didn't want to be part of it. He didn't want to witness it. Vidura also went to pilgrimage. But before then, he was very much an instructive instrument for his brother, Dhritarashtra. And so when he was on pilgrimage, he died at Prabhasa. And when he died at Prabhasa, they mentioned in Prabhupada that, in fact, even in the text itself, he died at Prabhasa, and he was well received by the denizens of Pitaloka planet. That is, the planet where Yamaraj was resided before. That's where his post is, where he operates. So when he gave up the body, Vidura, he went to Pitraloka and he was well received. They gave him well accomplished reception. And he was restored back to his position, to his position as Yamaraj, the superintendent of death. So, Papa mentions in the purport that Yamaraj of Vidura is an administrative demigod, whereas the Pandavas are eternal associates of the Lord. And although the eternal associates of the Lord are always in touch with the Lord, vice versa, the non-eternal associates are not able to have access to the Lord. They're not in touch with the Lord. But it so happens that although they have this type of huge opportunity or huge privilege of being in touch with the Lord, they're not able to remember their pastimes with the Lord from previous lives. So Prabhupada gave a reference verse in the last sentence of this purport. But in a very opening sentence in the purport, he said he talked about the difference between Vidura and the Pandavas. Vidura is an administrative demigod. The Pandavas are eternal associates of the Lord. So the Pandavas are in touch with them. And so they're like friends. You see how Lord Krishna was a messenger to the Pandavas. And that's very rare for the Supreme Lord to serve his devotees. But that is the rare privilege of the devotee. We see also in the pastimes of Lord Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, that he served Nanda Maharaj. Some will find how Nanda Maharaj will sometimes ask Krishna to go and bring his wooden shoes. And only put the wooden shoes on his head. So the Pandavas, Krishna basically was like their messenger. Dhritarashtra had a predicament of not being able to develop his spiritual values, or deprived of spiritual values, devotional values. And so Vidura, being all merciful, he came to the rescue. He delivered him from the ocean of material existence by giving him devotional instructions. Although Dhritarashtra was not very much favorably disposed to Vidura, but Vidura did his best anyway to save him. Because we find that eventually Dhritarashtra was able to leave home for the forest for preparation to meet with death. So there we find, we can understand how the devotee is so magnanimous that even those who don't want the devotee to be around, he goes the extra mile to help them anyway. Why? Because he's seeing only the super soul within every body. And so it becomes imperative for the devotee to be able to help out without taking into consideration that this person wants to kill me, or this person is planning evil against me, or this person doesn't like me. So that was the situation of the Torah. He was so spiritually situated, equiposed to the adversities that were being perpetrated, or even on him and the Pandavas. So he played a very vital role in trying to create a positive spiritual, political, and social change in the life of both the Pandavas and the Kauravas. So, the story of Mount of Mourning is very instructive, because in the material world, a child commits a crime. Take, for instance, if a 10 years old goes to shoot somebody down, he will not be prosecuted in some states in the United States. He killed somebody. I got a gun. Maybe they will try to track down someone who is and abated the crime by figuring out who owns the gun. How did he get the gun? Is this his father or his mother or his uncle or whatever who owns the gun? But if a 10 years old, 9 years old, 8 years old child goes to kill somebody with a gun in America, he will not be prosecuted in most states. But the system is different from in the Universal Court of Justice, presided over by Yamaraj. So whether you're a baby or a child, Yamaraj, the laws do not preclude anyone from being indicted for crimes committed or for sins committed. So in a sense, the universe is set up itself a very nice way that we don't need to even have a police system, because there's a natural police system in place. So we may even do something that we feel no one is seeing us, or we may try to hurt somebody and that we feel no one is seeing us, or we kill somebody and we feel no one saw me. But, you know, Yamaraj has a record for Gupta. His secretary has a record for all of our records, or whatever we do. Unlike in the material world, where someone will commit some crime and he will hire a lawyer and get away with it. And the Universal Court of Justice does not preclude, no one is precluded from actual justice. So the justice system, the universal justice system, is very, very interesting. And if the modern day justice departments understand this, they could, buckle up and walk in a better way without fear or favor. Because what is transparent these days in the material world is completely against the welfare of the human beings, against the welfare of even the criminals. Because the criminals are not prosecuted, they're let free because of some discrepancies in the prosecution of that very criminal matter. When there are some discrepancies, or when there is some discrepancy in the prosecution or in the witness prosecution of any criminal offense, it doesn't mean that the crime did not take place. But it just that there's some discrepancy in the prosecution witness, and so the criminal, the alleged criminal, will be set free. That is the law. So that is an anomaly. That is an irregularity in our legal system. in our justice system. Now, this is not the case with the Universal Court of Justice. So here I will find how Yamaraj explained or provided a precise information to Manda community, how things work out, how things operate. But Manda community was very uncomfortable, intolerant by the situation. And he cursed. And he accepted the curse with the understanding that he's been designated to go and perform some service. He's been given a chance to go and meet the Lord. And exactly he became a close associate of Krishna. And he made himself available to be used as an instrument of emancipation for other conditioned souls in the family. So, the important thing for us is to be able to understand that whatever we do, we are accountable. Nobody may see us. We do good, we do for ourselves. We do bad, we do for ourselves. This is how the universe, justice system of the universe works. And for the devotees of the Lord who are in personal touch with the Lord, they are always, they are very fortunate. For those of us conditioned souls who are not able to even perform what we need to do to be able to extricate ourselves from the shackles of material bondage, and that is very unfortunate. But the point is that we are prone to forgetfulness, especially our degree of forgetfulness in Kali Yuga is very intense. And so, Prabhupada also mentions in the purport how people, just like people don't like to see, especially people who have some deficiency in their moral values, they don't like to see a police officer. So people in general, they're worried about Yamaraj's presence. But a devotee is not worried about Yamaraj because Yamaraj himself is a devotee. He's executing his service on behalf of the Lord. And it's a good thing here that everyone is held accountable. We are all held accountable for what we do. Whether we are Paramahamsas, whether we are Sudras, whether we are ants, we are kids, we are held responsible for what we do by the Universal Justice Department. So Yamaraj went to take over his position, his job. He's returned back from his leave. So he resumes his job. All right, any comments or questions?
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Maharaj, for the class and retelling the story of Mandukamuni and how he became a Vidura. Very beautiful and inspiring lesson for all of us to learn. We want to formally recognize the presence of His Grace, Shri Vasvanachari. Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. My obeisances, Maharaj. My obeisances.
Hare
Krishna, Maharaj. Dhanavad. Happy to see you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
So, dear devotees, if anyone has a question for Maharaj, please, you may do so. But Maharaj, I have one quick question, as always. I always have questions somehow. My question is, you told about how Mandakamuni cursed Yamaraj and he became a Vidura. But when someone pronounces a curse, it's just like if you are the president of the United States and then you order, get me a slice of pizza. Somebody will immediately run out to go get you the pizza. Somebody will have to do that to make the pizza appear. So when people pronounce curses, who is responsible for making it happen? Who does that? That's my question, Maharaj.
Who does? Who does what?
Who sees to it that what has been said happens? Like Mandakamuni cursed Yamaraj to appear as a maidservant.
Execution. I mean, you could also equally ask that, who cursed us? Who enabled us to take birth in West Africa?
Well, I think that is based on our on the individual's karmic reactions, and then.
But then a curse means that you created some karma and it has it's been executed. You're taking responsibility. So it's the same laws of the universe. Prabhupada mentions about how laws of nature are so stringent. So someone is there to enable the offender to be aware that they've done something and they have to pay the price. So sometimes you find the demigods who have to do it. Sometimes even you find the case of Jai and Vichai. So yeah, it is being executed by the laws, through the laws of nature, through the universal governance system. The people who are responsible for taking souls to their next bed, they do that. Does it make some sense? The same.
It does, but yeah, it does. But like in the case, like if somebody stole something, and we say, hey, this person must be arrested. The laws will demand that the police will have to go and arrest the person. But here we see oftentimes the demigods who are considered to be like the administrators, the executioners, and the police who are supposed to go and accost somebody or arrest somebody, they themselves get punished and they become scared.
Yeah, but even in our own system, like we find in a case in the United States, some police commit some crime. Chavan had just been jailed, so he killed somebody. He's a police, so he could kill someone with immunity. But no, the laws do not give anyone immunity. If you're a police officer, you commit a crime, you pay the price for it. And then the same police system will prosecute you and jail you. So that is, there are executors. That the law is there, but there are executors. So once an individual becomes an offender and is indicted, prosecuted, and found guilty, the executors of the law, they've been able to take him over. It doesn't matter. Look, they may even prosecute Trump. in America, because now the January 6th insurrection,
yeah,
you know, it's been investigated, and so there are a number of countries that the head of state, former head of state, has been jailed.
Yeah.
So this is somebody who just give an order, hey, kill this person or jail this person. But now he also becomes a victim of circumstance. So no one is above the law. If even you are an executor, and you go contrary to the law, or someone finds you perform inappropriate activity, or allegedly, curses you, the executors will again, proceed on with your service and have that person, to be able to meet with the consequences. So I mean, the system, it works so perfectly, just like the material system. See, in America, I've seen cases where the chief judge of the state goes to jail. Yeah. Pennsylvania, the chief judge went to jail. In New York, so one of the past chief justices, he went to jail.
Yeah. Yeah, it does happen.
So the law have no respect for anybody. The universal laws are even more stringent.
Yeah.
Yes, any other comments or questions?
Yes, thank you so much, Maharaj. Tribhuvanat's Prabhu, place on mute. Tribhuvanat.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Oh, scholar.
Maharaj, please accept my pranam obeisance.
Is that Dr. Tribhuvanat?
Obeisance to you, Maharaj.
The obeisance is to you.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, I really appreciate the response you gave to this question that was raised by Sahadi. It reminds me of a particular script, the rules of engagement. It makes a lot of sense to me going down the lane about that particular script. Maharaj, the story you have highlighted for us to ponder on, to think about, I have something to say about it. Because yes, a lot of lessons to learn from that story that you have gave us to think of. I know about the story to some extent. When the sage was hanged, within the middle of the night, somehow he assembled other sages. So these sages, they're like so concerned. We're asking, what kind of atrocity you may have caused that has led this kind of punishment to you? The sage said, I don't know. Who should I blame? He said, I don't know. Who should I blame? So following your response you gave to the question that was raised, all causes, all reactions, it has a connection with our previous karma, or it has a connection with the laws of the universal laws you mentioned. But in particular, every action, one to see that there's always an instrument that make it happen. It might be previous, it might be present, but there is somebody who is an instrument to make it happen. So what do we learn from that particular instrument that make that action happen? Are we to say that that person is the cause, or we just have to accept it, just like what the sage has, respond to his fellow sage, that who is to blame?
Yeah, that's a nice point you raised. Thank you. Because material world is just a painful experience. It is so difficult for us to accept that the suffering we are passing through if even we know the person who is subjecting us to or who is torturing us, it is difficult for us to accept that, oh, it must be, or it is my past, past activities that have merited this. Now, if we also accept the principle that we need to be humble, I think this is one of the things that is pretty dominant in Indian subcontinent. Something happens to somebody, and they said, "Oh, it's my karma," and so crime is perpetrated, or someone abuses another person, or someone does something criminal against someone else, and because of higher understanding, they accept the principle that, oh, it's my karma. But you know what? With that type of situation, there's a lot of complexity that arises. It's a vicious circle that is created. And so the Justice Department creates a system, or the state creates a system where we can not just take laws into our hand, but at least report to the state that this person has hurt me, this person has injured. I mean, it's like, look at the example in the Ramayana, when this Brahmin kicked or hurt the dog that was sitting on the road. And when the matter came up to Lord Ramachandra, this Brahmin was, he was judged, he was indicted. The matter, Lord Ramachandra did not just think, or did not just say, oh, it must be the karma of the dog. It's the karma of the dog. You're a Brahmin, go anyway. They set him up on trial, and they found him guilty. So the idea of the justice system or the police state is to be able to not allow us to abuse the very concept of karma or retribution, because otherwise, you know, people will be hurting each other like anything. If I carry a gun and go kill somebody, then I just tell the relative that this is his karma. So there are laws in each and every state, and we have to obey those laws. And if something happens, if we are wise enough, then we don't take the laws into our hand. We report the matter to the appropriate quarters, appropriate authorities, the law enforcement agents, for the state to take action. Then, you know, we have done our part. So life on the planet is not so easy. It's not so good. It's not so easy. Because if one is suffering in this world, it's not going to be happy. And what is our position for someone who is suffering? Do we just tell them, it's your karma? I mean, it's like somebody was asking me a question sometime. She was in college, and she said something happened to some of our friends, and she wanted to talk to them, to preach to them, to tell them that they shouldn't worry, it is their karma. I said, no, we don't talk like that. We don't preach like that. We don't tell people that they're suffering because of their karma. We empathize with people. Otherwise, if we don't empathize with people, then people will not recognize, the public will not recognize how we are even trying to be God conscious. And so the important point here is that when things happen, we have to see if they are counterproductive to the laws of the land. We make a report. See, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, our Acharya of the Gaudiya Vaishnava system, he prosecuted he arrested Bishop Kisin, arrested him, indicted him, and jailed him. When other British government officials were afraid, when other Indian officials were afraid, he risked his life. He went beyond the scope of his duty as a leader, as a legal leader. He even wanted to do the job of the police because the police were even afraid to arrest this yogi. So he didn't just sit back and say, where is the karma of the people? This is our karma. But the yogi was doing something. He was impersonating. He was being blasphemous. He said he was Mahavishnu and was cheating people. And he had some mystic power. In fact, when Bhakti had to get him arrested, and when he was being tried, he made his family sick. Bhakti he cast a spell on Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was heavily sick. In fact, the day that the judgment was to be pronounced, he went to the court on a palanquin. So the material world is not so easy, but even the Paramahamsas, the pure devotees, they don't sit back. They do their duty. When someone is a criminal, we should follow the example of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And if someone does something funny, we should correlate that to the laws of the land. As an institution, even as a non-governmental institution, we have so many limitations. We can't take up the job of the courts. We can't take up the job of the police. If someone commits a criminal offense, then basically that is not like someone who didn't wake up from Mangarati or someone who went to smoke or break the principles. It's a criminal behavior, then we have to understand that's not our job. We have to hand just a person to the appropriate court. So there is a check and balance in the system so that people don't exercise their abusive rights to the extreme. So yeah, Manduk Moni or anyone else, he could have been tolerant. If he's a pure devotee, he would have been tolerant. But the yogis, they you do them something wrong, they make you pay the price. They make you pay the price. They make you pay the price. And so, because they also have mystic powers, so they can curse. And Lord Krishna mentioned to Uddhava in the Uddhava Gita, when he was discussing about mystic powers, he told Uddhava that, these mystic powers, they distract very significantly. They distract a person who is pursuing them very significantly from the path of pure devotion. So we will see in the life of the yogis, you do a yogi, if you go and wrong a yogi, they punish you. The own is not a question of, is tolerant to teacher. No, they make you pay the price. So yeah, there are so many things we can learn. We have to learn to be patient, and at the same time, we have to learn to be careful so that we don't get into trouble with people who are intolerant. Because when someone does something funny, and for you to rectify it could be a challenge too. So yeah, we have to watch where we put our footsteps so that we can help in protecting and preserving our devotional culture.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Maharaj, thank you.
And
You're welcome.
Thank you for the answer. Anyone else with something to ask? See, Maharaja, as you were answering his Tribhunath Prabhu's question, I was I was back here laughing because I was just thinking to myself, Mandakamuni cursed Yamaraj to be born as a Shudra. But the question is, did that curse actually take effect? Because I believe that if not all of us, most of us don't accept that Vidura was a Shudra. He was one of the most brilliant brains they had in that kingdom. So how does Mandakamuni's curse actually fructify? Except that we also believe that this caste system is based on birth and not by deeds. So my question is, did Mandakamuni's curse actually take effect?
Of course, yes, it took effect. That's the statement of the Bhagavatam. That's the statement of Prabhupada. He said he was cursed to become a Sudra. Yes, he took birth in the womb of a Sudrani. Isn't that just obvious? This does not require a belief. A belief simply means you need to substantiate your status, your stand, with a scientific value. But Prabhupada said it. And it's also stated there vividly in the text. And so, it's just that a devotee is a devotee, whether you curse him to take birth in a demoniac family, they will still execute their pious, they will still show their pious disposition. They will operate by pious disposition. And it doesn't matter what type of body they have, their inner being is completely focused on helping humanity to be able to transform lives like Vidura did in his family. He transformed lives, transformed his brother's life. He gave counseling to the Pandavas. He gave very wonderful ideas to Dhritarashtra, which enabled Dhritarashtra to be able to take appropriate action and was able to live firm. So yes, the curse did take place, but the actual effect of the activities of a Sudra weren't there. So that is the nullity of the curse. Because he was a special soul. He was a devotee of the Lord, an administrative demigod, and he has to obey the rules himself. So he was cursed, but then he took that curse and came to execute some service. So yes, the curse was executed, but he took. It's like someone who is faced with a challenge. You either cry over that challenge, or you take advantage of the challenge to be able to, deal with it and grow. So that's the situation.
Yeah, see, Maharaja, I asked this question because Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita the characteristics of these varnas and ashrams. And when we go by those characteristics, then it's obvious that Vidura was not a Sudra. But we say he is Sudra because he was born of a maidservant, which, of course, as you say, Srila Prabhupada himself said it, the text also says it. But what I'm trying to say is that if the scriptures say that, which means that at that time, in the eyes of the scriptures, when they talk of these Varanas and ashrams, they were talking about birthright. Because if it is not based on birthright, then we cannot conclude at birth that this person is a Sudra or is a Brahmin simply because he is born of this person. But I also understand what you're saying, that that's what the scriptures say, because Vidura's mother was a maidservant, was a Sudrani. But as I was also saying, and you also alluded to, nobody can say that Vidura was a Sudra because he did not live the characteristics of a Sudra as explained in the Bhagavad Gita. So, well.
Yeah, that is, you're very much on point, because the idea is that he was cursed to take birth as a Sudra. And he did take birth as a Sudra, as in the womb of a Sudrani. But internally, he wasn't a Sudra. He did not act as a Sudra. His qualities were completely Brahminical, and he was completely God conscious. So, I mean, you find people who are born in Brahmin family. You find cases in the Vedic literature, people who are born in Brahmin family, and they don't exhibit Brahminic qualities. They act below even the standard of Sudras. So yeah, those things have been there, and it's difficult to change, because sometimes you find that even the so-called Sudras, they're better than some of the Brahmins.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of character development. Who is a Brahmin? Character.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Tribhuvanat Prabhu, please unmute, and then we'll go to GBC.
Maharaj, I so much
Yes.
thank you, because your intellectuality is being displayed on this platform, which is very important for us. Maharaj, let us look at this angle, looking at cause, looking at punishment. We see from the Shastra, we often hear causes, and we see how it takes place, we see it first. And we also see punishment also, just like what we see from this Madhuka Moni. Punishment leads to a different angle. So punishment cause, do they really generate what we call, what might be referred to as retribution, or do they really generate something that has to do with an act of mercy, and an act of renovating that particular individual?
Yeah, in a number of cases, depends on the disposition of the executor of the law. Some people, like you find in the legal system, that someone commits a crime and the judge will take into consideration about their past. Is he a first offender? Is he a committed criminal?
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
So the point is that when something happens, the person who is involved could either take it as the mercy of the Lord, or maybe very, very, very disturbed to the point that they become atheistic or blasphemous. So it is only the wise and the devoted souls who see punishment or suffering for what they perceive as suffering. It is only devotees who are wise to be able to accept it in good faith. Otherwise, people in general, no. People in general, someone is suffering, and they even declare that there is no God. Because there is no higher understanding. And so the wise will accept their suffering as a token for what they are supposed to pass through. The spiritually bankrupt persons will see their suffering as a means to disconnect completely with the idea of a living personality or a spiritual personality of God, or the sovereignty of someone over the universe. So it depends on individuals. If the devotee sees suffering as a means of elevation, the non-devotee sees suffering as unwarranted punishment, unwarranted suffering, unwarranted punishment, and it could cause so much of degradation. So yeah, retribution in itself is difficult in the material world, but universally speaking, in the universal justice system, yeah, there is proper retribution. If someone commits a crime, is met out with the appropriate corrective measure. But our systems in the material world, our justice systems are very corrupt. So it is difficult to get proper retribution in the material world, no matter what advocacies the profile. It is very, very difficult because the conditioned soul and conditioned souls characteristically, they are biased. You show me one conditioned soul who is not biased. So it's difficult to do it. But we are lucky, we are fortunate that Prabhupada has given us this very wonderful system. And we should be in a position, we should be supportive of each other. This is the whole thing. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, thank you. I think we have a question from our GBC. Kusha Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
The great Kusha.
Yes.
Maharaj, long time no see. Kusha. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please, yeah. I have a question on cause and effects. Okay. Vidura was caused. Most of the time we see that non-devotees, mystic yogis cause a devotee. Like Parishit Maharaj was caused by the son of a Brahmana, who are not pure devotees. And Vidura was caused. The person that caused Vidura, is he a pure devotee or a mystic yogi? Then I will it's a yogi, yes. So my question is, how come taking shelter of Krishna, he allowed people who are not pure devotees to cause his devotees and put them in difficulties? What is the point of taking shelter of God himself when a yogi's power can still affect you, even though you are the feet of Krishna?
Okay. Thank you very much. You know, when Krishna was born, how many people tried to kill him?
That one, he was making his pastime. It is his desire to have a pastime. But he promised us, take shelter of me, I will protect you from all dangers. And he's not doing that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Maharaj, sorry. I want to know.
You're making me laugh. Okay. Okay, so the characteristics of a devotee is that they are humble and they see the hand of the Lord in everything that transpires in their life. So if something bad happens to them, their cause or whatever, they know that the Lord has a purpose for it. I mean, just like the case of Vidura. Okay, the case of Vidura, he came to save Dhritarashtra. He came to save that family. So, for a devotee of the Lord, whether he's born as a rat through a cause, he accepts in good faith because the Lord has an arrangement for him. I mean, look at also the case where to be cursed is not really a bad thing. And if we accept in principle that the Lord is all merciful, who has allowed that curse to be implemented or to happen. Look at the case where another Muni was coming and then, you know, these guys were playing around in the pond, nude. And he was disturbed about their attitude, their immoral values, and he cursed them. But you know what? As a pure devotee, he also blessed them. Now that is where the pure devotee is different from the yogi. Pure devotee also can curse, like the case of Narada. Okay, so but then the yogi, they curse to satisfy their anger. But if the recipient of the cause, if the victim is a devotee, the Lord comes to the rescue. He already has arranged to be able to take care of that person without even the individual knowing. So the case of Vidura is a striking example. The Lord allowed him to execute some perfect service for Dhritarashtra and his family. So anyone could actually be subjected to any curse. And if it does happen, we should understand that the Lord has some purpose. We shouldn't blame Krishna. Oh, Krishna, what is it? I've been serving you for all these years, and you allowed this to happen to me. What?
Okay, Maharaj, so in that regard, my second question is about among devotees causing each other. For example, a devotee can get angry at somebody and try to cause the person. Either the cause doesn't affect, it's not effective, or you use some mystic negative energies by true thoughts or any action to inflict pain on the devotee. So for the mystic yogis, I can understand they have some extraordinary powers. But among devotees, harming each other through any other means, how does it take effect when Krishna says, I will protect you if you surrender unto me?
Krishna, you see, these causes, negative projections, they are also Krishna's energy, material energy, Bahiranga Shakti. Now, if we abuse it, we get some reactions. We may even die suddenly because we hurt a devotee. So it is very dangerous. Because when Krishna says, Tam Tiksha Swa, it implies if we get hurt, if someone acts funny, we have a responsibility to tolerate. And if we tolerate, Krishna comes to the rescue. Krishna takes charge. The person will pay the price, whether they like it or not. So, to act negatively on a devotee is very dangerous. Even on a non-devotee, is very dangerous. With the perpetrator has a price to pay. We should be confident about this. There are good, perfect checks and balances in the universe. So someone may think that, you know, they can go and meet some babalawo to go and do harm somebody, or negative thought to harm somebody. They will pay the price for it. They'll pay the price for it. Sometimes it's just sudden death. So we have to be careful how we project our thoughts and how we are being responsible for our thoughts and behaviors. So thank you, Kusa. This is a very important thing. We should be very wary of projecting negative thoughts on anyone.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Because the devotee is a very precious person, and we have to be careful. Yes.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Srimad Maharaj Prabhu, please unmute. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please. Yeah.
Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Srimad.
My
Hare Krishna.
obeisances, Maharaj.
Obeisances to you.
My respect to all the devotees on the forum. Yeah, it's just some comment on Kush's questions. The first question, like he was saying that we took shelter of Krishna, and then Krishna led his pure devotees to be cursed, and things happened to them. So it's like Krishna is not protecting them. So that same question is asked often in another way. Why do bad things happen to good people? That is the popular question, the way people used to ask that question.
Yeah.
So, and we of course know the answer to that. First is that we can also see pure devotees that are being protected by Krishna from negative influences or, you know, negative forces. That we can also see. There's so many examples of that. Prahlad is one, and maybe you can think of others. Now, why should pure devotees of Krishna be affected by causes? First one is that you should always remember that every saint has a past, just like the case of Manduka. He was a saint, a yogi, but he had a past, terrible past of inflicting pains to living entities. So when, so he got, you know, a bad reaction, you know, which Yamaraj allowed to happen, but he reacted against that by cursing Yamaraj. Now, Yamaraj's case, he actually was like already looking for a holiday from his constant job of, you know, taking people into you know, killing people. He needed a break. So I mean, from the example of Yamaraj, he was a servant of Krishna doing his job, and he was being cursed by this yogi. But Yamaraj already was waiting for an opportunity to go on holiday. So that was used as just like an instrument for Yamaraj to take a break from his duty. So that's the explanation we got for that. But on general, when pure devotees are being affected by, you know, like the case of Maharaj mentioned the case of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and there was this yogi, you know, inflicting pain on him and his family. Lord Chaitanya responded to that by saying that the suffering of an innocent person is for a short while. So sometimes we can see an innocent person suffer unjustly, but it is for a short while. And Krishna allowed that for many reasons. Sometimes just to show, you know, that the devotees also can suffer, but it does not last. And also sometimes to make his devotees more glorious, because when the devotees are put to test or to difficulties, they shine more. The example of gold put into fire. Right. So Krishna allowed these things to happen just to make his devotees more glorious. And then also it gives example, the devotee become example for non-devotees to let them know that devotees also suffer, but Krishna always made them glorious. If they are surrendered, the end of that suffering will be joy. So it is not just that Krishna is sitting back and allowing his pure devotees to be caused or to suffer. No, it's not like that. There's always a good reason. And then the other one, of course, we all know this, that there's always something good that comes at the end of it. Maharaja was cursed, but then that gave us Bhagavatam. You know, it was intended so that this can happen. So every time something happens to a pure devotee, we should understand that it is not the material energy that is acting. It's actually because devotees are not under the control of the material energy. That's what Krishna says. They're under the control of the internal energy. So if anything similarly negative happens to a pure devotee, we have to just understand that Krishna's hand is in it. And not only that, everyone also has to apply that. If anything negative happens to us, even if you are not pure devotees, we should know that there is Krishna's hand in it. Anyway, that's just a little contribution. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your very profound contribution.
Maharaj, please, I want to ask, I don't think that it's always as Prabhuji has mentioned, that whatever Krishna sanctions, it always says there's always good at the end. I don't think that it's applicable to all causes of punishments. Because I will say this, we say from the Canto 10, chapter 16 of Bhagavatam, what's his name? Kaliya was being punished by Krishna. And the wife, the Nagapatni, the wife of Kaliya, they say so many things. They say so philosophical things that even the yogi, he cannot get the mention that Kaliya has get, having Krishna's lotus feet in his head. The yogi, they have gone through years of, still they cannot get that dust on their head, but just a fragment of, time Kaliya has gotten that mercy. That this punishment we have given to this, our husband, Kaliya, is not actually punishment, it's mercy. But there is something beyond, there is something below that. Krishna acknowledged that it was mercy from the angle of the wife, philosophical words. But then Krishna asked Kaliya to leave Vrindavan. If the punishment was mercy, why would Krishna, order Kaliya to leave Vrindavan? So the punishment becomes a little bit kind of a sentimental, punishment. You give somebody punishment in order for that person to be rectified, but at the same time you send it away. So how is that punishment, fructified? So my point here is, it's not always, as Prabhuji has said, that if one gets caught, there is always victory, or there is always a benefit at the other side. But in this case of Kaliya, I don't think that was really benefit, because Kaliya was in Vrindavan and he was punished by the Lord, and the Lord sent it away from Vrindavan. So how can we balance? How can we fix this? You give somebody punishment for him to get rectified, for him to, the wife said it's an act of mercy. But at the end of it all, he was sent out of Vrindavan. So how do we fix this?
All right. Tribu, thank you very much for your comment, your question. This time, I'm in India. You're also in India. I have a very terrible body system. It's already 10 o'clock. So will I join this meeting now? And next time we meet, we can continue from here.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Maharaj. Yes, we know it's quite late your time. Thank you for the time. Thank you for being here to give us your blessings and enlightenment. But Maharaj, I'll beg of you before you leave, we would like His Grace Srivas Vanachari to say something before you leave. His Grace Srivas Panachari, please. You are muted, please. Okay, good.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'm just an audience. I'm just listening. So thank you, Maharaj, for the very logical and shastric presentation. And thank you to all the contributors, Maharaji, Tribhuvanat Prabhu, Kusha Prabhu, and everybody who contributed to make the lecture interesting. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Srivas.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, all participants, for coming really time to be part of this program. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. So, dear devotees, we humbly request you all to kindly unmute, and then we chant Hare Krishna to express our appreciation for Maharaj's presence. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
So, dear devotees, we thank you all by Guru Krishna's grace.